What's going on, College Hoops Heads? This is another episode of the One and Done podcast with Stephen Baggell and John Simpson. We have a very special guest. This is actually part 2 of the episode. Part 1, you could find the video component where we do a film breakdown with Baylor point guard RayJ Dennis. And RayJ is here with us today to answer some questions. We promise we won't ask him anything too difficult. But yeah, so RayJ is here. So first of all, RayJ, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm doing well.
John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Stephen. Glad to be here with you. Glad to be here with RayJ. I'm a big fan and excited to get into this and talk some hoops.
Okay, so RayJ, my first question for you, I know you're familiar with the Field of 68, and the Field of 68 does the College Basketball Almanac. I believe this is actually the second year they did it. The Field of 68 writers ranked you as the 69th best player in the Almanac's top 100 players this year. I suppose it's a two-part question. My first question is, do you pay any attention to publications like that? Like, will they have you ranked? And if so, do you think they're too high? Do you think they're too low? What's your opinion on that?
I'd be lying if I said I don't look at them and see them. Rankings with me don't necessarily hold a lot of weight with me because basically my whole life and whole basketball career, I've never really been ranked high. Like I can probably count on one finger, two fingers, a time where I've been ranked high. And so they don't necessarily hold a lot of weight because I know you got to go out there on the floor and you got to look dudes in the eyes and you got to perform or you get outplayed. And it's that simple.
That's awesome. I like that about you, Ray. And I was kind of going off of that. We were talking a little bit before, you started off at Boise and then Toledo and then Baylor. And I think you came out of the Chicago area for high school and playing basketball. And I believe you were a 3-star recruit coming out of there. And, I was kind of wondering what it was like coming out of that area and, some of the competition you were playing against in high school, in the recruiting process, and you ended up at Boise, and then kind of how that's changed some as here you are entering the portal, going to one of the top teams in the country this year.
Yeah, so just kind of my journey in a sense. Yeah, I mean, starting growing up in the Chicago area, Plainfield, Illinois, and just playing against all the talent in Chicago has got me ready for anything, I believe. And then my experiences at Boise and then going to Toledo and just loving it, having a great time, having a great last or the last 2 years of my career really got me ready. And so now I was ready to take another jump and go play in the Big 12 and play at Baylor, and I'm really enjoying it. And the transition has been really smooth, and I'm excited. I'm excited to play in the Big 12 and play against that top talent every night.
So let's talk about the transfer to Baylor. Obviously, you were down to, I believe it was Baylor, Michigan, your hometown, Illinois. I don't know how far away you live from Champaign, but Illinois and Utah. So I have a two-part question. Why did you choose Baylor out of those 4 schools? And what are you most excited for playing for Scott Drew? I mean, Scott Drew does a phenomenal job at developing guards. I mean, the biggest example is Davion Mitchell. He went from, same thing as you, a mid-major player that ends up becoming an NBA lottery pick. So those are, I know, a very compound question, but so why Baylor, and what are you most excited for playing for Scott Drew?
I mean, first, those are 4 really, really good schools, all 4 of them, and all great coaches. And I mean, that's why my list was where it was. And I mean, going with Baylor, just the way they develop guards and how good their guards have been in the past. That's a fraternity that I wanted to be a part of, and then the love and the type of people they are at Baylor was it seemed really genuine and authentic. So that's some place that it seemed like I wanted to be going through the process, and that's why I chose Baylor. And what I'm most excited about playing for Coach Drew is just his energy and excitement. Like he truly brings that every single day, being in workouts and practices and things like that with him every day. He truly brings that. And so just to be around that, I feel like it makes people around you better and it'll make me better. So I'm just excited for that part.
That's awesome. You know, being Steve and both are big fans of Coach Drew and Coach Brooks and what they're doing down there in Baylor. I think it's an amazing opportunity, you know, for you, and we can't wait to see you develop. And so Rothstein tweeted that over your career against Power Five conference teams, that you've averaged 13 points and 8.5 assists a game. I think, which is an impressive stat, and I think anybody like to have that. You know, and um, you know what we were kind of talking about before. Do you think that that's something that you're going to be able to sustain this year at Baylor, playing in that Big 12 every game? Do you think that's something you want to improve on? And kind of what have you been doing to get to that place?
I mean, I feel like this is one of the best summers I've had in terms of getting ready and getting my body ready and just getting ready to play in the Big 12 and play the schedule that we have. And as far as my stats and everything, like that'll take care of itself. Um, but as far as like the assists go, that's I would love to keep it right there, 8.5, 9. But like I said, I got great teammates and shooters around me and athletes, so they'll make my job a lot easier and make those assists easier to come by.
So you went through the NBA draft process before entering the transfer portal. I believe you had workouts with the Milwaukee Bucks, one to name a few. So what was the process like? What was the draft process like? What did you learn? What made you come back for another year of college? And how do you think it prepared you for, your grad transfer this year? So this is your last year of college basketball. So how do you feel like it prepped you for the NBA draft next year?
Yeah, I mean, just to talk about the workouts first, it was really fun. The process that I went through, and obviously it's a dream that I've had since I was a little kid to play in the NBA. And just to kind of be close to that and be a step closer and going through the process and being in those NBA gyms was partially a little bit of a dream come true. So it was fun. And I took all the experience and feedback as encouragement. And then just kind of some of the feedback, just, becoming a better shooter and just playing better and then proving it against the best players and talent in the country. So that was some of the feedback. And then that's part of the reason why I chose Baylor and going to play in the Big 12. And so I mean, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
And again, as we talked about during the film breakdown, you've gotten better every year of your college career. So I still think you're evolving a little bit as a player. So I definitely think, you're not in the NBA this year, but I definitely think it'll be a blessing in disguise for, where you're going to be drafted next year, especially playing at a high major like Baylor, where you're going to have probably at least 30 NBA teams watching you almost every game.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Ray J, we were talking some uh, before too when we were looking at some of the questions we want to talk to you about and kind of looking over your college career. And you've had a great college career. You know, like you said, you've been getting better every year. Um, you did some amazing things at Toledo, especially last year. You know, MAC Player of the Year. Put up some really impressive stats. And put up a real nice showing against some NBA players, especially in that NIT game against Michigan. That Toledo was right there and had a chance to win. Um, I know that your first year at Boise State, the tournament got canceled. Um, following that year, a couple NIT shots, and something that I was wondering is, and I'm sure you're ready. Um, going into Baylor and having a chance, to play in the NCAA tournament. And I don't know if you've listened to our breakdowns of the conference or whatever, but we got high hopes for Baylor and for RayJ Dennis too, but how do you feel like, how excited are you to have an opportunity to play in that field of 68 and make a run with the Baylor Bears?
Super excited. Super excited. I mean, going into all the years in college, that was the goal was to not only get to the NCAA tournament, but make a run when you get there. And unfortunately, I mean, I haven't been able to do that yet, but that's number one on the list right now. So I'm super excited to be able to compete for that, and got to go out there and do it.
Okay. So, Ray J, I'm going to bring up something from when you were born. I'm sure you've been asked about it before, but you were born with a birth defect called clubfoot, which I believe affects 1 out of every 200,000 babies, where, again, you can probably explain it better than I can, but your foot essentially was sideways when you were born. Most people, from what I read, really struggle to even walk when they're born with something like that, let alone become high major athletes. So how did you overcome it, but what is that like to having to overcome something like that to become an athlete at the level that you've succeeded so far in?
Yeah, no, and people ask me about this all the time. And honestly, I think it was a blessing in disguise because I mean I don't know how it would have went had I had 2 regular feet, but I know that since I've had a club foot, some days where I don't feel like getting up or going to work out or going to do certain things, that's what will get me up. And knowing that if I don't, I'll be a step behind or I'll be a lesser athlete or something like that. So that's something that's pushed me and has kind of helped catapult me into the position I am right now.
That's awesome. You know what, Ray J, for me, I think that's something that kind of, if I had to pick a theme from your film and from your career, it's just been that gritty, having that dog in you, always, pushing yourself and, playing, you're a tough, hard-nosed basketball player. And you can really see that, uh, that strength. You've gotten stronger every year, you've gotten tougher every year, and that grittiness and that determination is something that, I'm really impressed with in your game, that and the one thing that really flies off the screen for me is your footwork. I love watching point guards. I love watching good footwork, and seeing guys like you talked about Chris Paul and Tyus Jones and stuff, and the way they move their feet, and I think it's really a good part of your game, and that's really impressive. So, um, I had a question. I was thinking about playing in the Big 12. There's some really good guards in that Big 12. Um, And I was wondering if, you've been picking ahead at the schedule or anything, if there's anybody you've got that you're looking forward to playing against, to playing with, you got anything circled on the schedule?
Well, I mean, every night you get to see somebody who's highly touted, and but I mean, I'm excited to play against a lot of them. I'll be honest. I mean, you got Tyler Perry at Kansas State and DeJuan Harris, and you got the mid-major transfer at Oklahoma, Javion McCullum. Um, I mean, you got Jameer Nelson Jr. and Avery Anderson at TCU, Kirk Creesa at West Virginia. I'm excited to play against all of them. I mean, I could walk down the whole list. I know all the point guards. I know who they all are in the Big 12. Um, I'm looking forward to playing all of them.
Okay. So John actually just stole my question. My question was also going to be, is there anybody with the Big 12 you're most excited to play against? So I'm going to shift gears here. Obviously, you played on a Toledo team with Ryan Rollins, who just was on Golden State his rookie year and now just got traded to the Washington Wizards. You played with Cedric Milner, who just signed a two-way with the San Antonio Spurs. Obviously, our guy JT Shoemade is playing in Romania right now. does that inspire you to, one, have teammates that you saw get to the next level and succeed and thrive at the next level? And two, how all those guys as like resources? Like, are these guys that you're going to reach out to? Hey, what does it really take to be an NBA player? I mean, obviously these are your former teammates, so I'm sure your relationship with them is great. But so yeah, I suppose my questions are: does that inspire you, and how are you going to use these guys as resources to get to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, like those three guys in particular are some of my best friends. So our relationships are really good. And like before I even use them as resources or anything, like just happy for him. Happy for him. Seth signed that two-way. I probably was one of the first people that called him. Like I seen it early in the morning, called him. Actually went out to summer league this summer to go watch Ryan. Um, and if Romania was closer, I would get out there to watch JT, no question. So just happy for them in that sense. And then after that, I mean, absolutely use them as a resource. Whenever I talk to them, I'm always asking them about like what's going on, what are practices like, and just trying to steal things and do that. And then over the summer, whenever we can compete and I can play against them too, and we can have a little healthy competitiveness and one-on-ones and things like that. Uh, just to see where you stack up is always fun.
That's awesome. And you know what? Kind of going off of that, I was wondering, what's it like coming into a new locker room? I know you're not the only new guy at Baylor this year, but what's it like, leaving Toledo and coming into a new locker room? And what's it kind of been like gelling with those guys over the summer? And how was it different? How was Baylor different from Toledo?
Um, well, I mean, I love Toledo, and in my basketball career, that was for sure the toughest decision I made, leaving Toledo. And then going into like a new locker room and everything like that. I mean, it was easier because I'd already done it once. So this was my second time doing it, and now I'm going into my fifth year, and I have a lot of experience, and I know we have some young guys in the locker room. I know I would be able just to give them some wisdom through some experience that I had. So it didn't make the transition that hard. The transition's been pretty smooth. And what was the second part to your question?
Oh, the second part was just, how is it different going into this Baylor locker room compared to what it was like at Toledo? It's practice, facilities, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I would say the difference is at least what I thought coming in. The difference is you're walking into a locker room with 4 and 5 stars versus mid-major players and guys. And not saying like the work ethic or anything like that is different, but the status for the guys is different. So that's what I thought coming in. And then you get to Baylor and you got like a really good group of dudes and guys who are 4 and 5 stars and everything. And they don't act like that. They act like they're 2 stars who are barely ranked and things like that. And that's how hard they work. So that made it super smooth to come in.
So I'm going to play off John's question a little bit in terms of the difference between Toledo and the Big 12. I mean, what do you anticipate being? I suppose, what's the culture shock like? I mean, I know you just sort of answered this, but in terms of play and more so the facilities, like Baylor obviously has a lot more athletic funding than Toledo does. I mean, just what's the expectation in terms of, okay, I'm in the Big 12 now? Is that a culture shock for you? Or because you played in the Mountain West previously, which is a bigger conference than the MAC, but obviously it's not the Big 12, which I agree with you, RayJ. It's definitely the best college basketball conference in the world the last few years. So, I mean, this is a conference that produced, obviously, Baylor won a national championship, then Kansas won a national championship. Texas Tech made the national championship and lost to Virginia. 2020, when the tournament was canceled, Kansas may have won that year too. So, I mean, just what are the expectations that you're putting on yourself of, okay, this isn't the MAC anymore. Again, you won MAC Player of the Year, and Toledo was the MAC regular season champion. But what do you anticipate the jump of the Big 12 being like?
Yeah, I mean, one, like, I wouldn't even call it like an expectation. One of, like, my anticipation is kind of, we talked about it a little bit, is you just get to play against the best guys, best players in the country literally every night.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you playing against them twice a week. So I mean, your blades got to be super sharp. You got to be ready to compete. You got to be locked in mentally and physically. And that's probably the biggest difference between, like you said, the MAC and the Mountain West is and those are two really good conferences. I think the MAC is super tough conference. It's a lot more physical than what people think. I mean, the difference probably is like athletes and the size, honestly. But that's the biggest thing going into the Big 12 is just you get to play against that high level talent every night. And that's something I'm looking forward to. I don't really put expectations on myself necessarily. I work hard, I do my work, and I trust it. And then I'm a I'm a fiend for competing. I love to compete. I love to get after it. I love to test where I'm at against the best players. And so that's what I go out there and do. I go out there, compete, and try to win, and let everything else take care of itself.
So then let me ask a follow-up to that. Obviously, the MAC, as I kind of alluded to, Toledo was the regular season champ multiple of the last few years. And unfortunately, with the MAC, it's really only a one bid league. So if you don't win your conference tournaments, you're not making March Madness, the NCAA tournament. So how is it going to be different? And again, you might know a little bit from Boise, given the Mountain West. I mean, the Mountain West has become a 4-bid league in recent years. But I mean, now the Big 12, you don't have the pressure. Sure, I'm not saying you don't want to win the conference tournament. Of course you do. But you know, okay, we already did enough going to the tournament, going into the conference tournament, that we are going to be in the NCAA tournament, whether we win this or not. So, you know, it's not the amount of pressure you had at Toledo that if you don't win the conference tournament, you're not making March Madness, essentially. So,
Right.
how do you think that's going to be different?
I mean, you kind of just hit it.
Okay.
Like, you get to go play, and knowing that, like, essentially, like, your season's not over if you lose one, if you drop one. But I mean, you still got to go play great in the regular season and put yourself in that position. And then we trying to win all of it.
Of course.
Also, so like I said, like, I'm a fiend for competing, and I try to win in anything I do. And I know that's how my teammates are, and coaches as well. So when we get to the Big 12 tournament and that time comes, that's what'll be on our mind, trying to win that.
Great. You know, one of the older guys in the locker room. Do you consider yourself to be like a leader on the team, or where do you kind of see your role?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, being a fifth year guy, and we got some younger guys who will be in the core and core players for us. Um, just trying to help them and give them wisdom. And also, I know how college basketball season goes. No matter where you're at in the country, it's going to be a lot of ups and downs and days you're hurt but not like injured, and things like that. And just kind of being a resource for those guys and even my other teammates, and just kind of letting them know how to deal with that or how I've dealt with it in the past, and things like that.
So you talked about Baylor being, you know, not a hub, but you know, there's a whole bunch of 4-star, 5-star type guys in that locker room. And again, you're the starting point guard. You're, as you just alluded to, you're going to be a leader on that squad. Are you going to take pride in, you know, mentoring those guys? I mean, Jacoby Walter is one of them that he's a 5-star guy. He's a projected NBA lottery pick. Jalen Bridges, I know when he was a guy who declared for the NBA draft and then said, okay, I'm either going to play in Australia or I'm going to go to Baylor. Then all of a sudden you commit to Baylor and he comes back. I mean, to me, it seems like you're kind of going to be like one of those glue guys, the leader who keeps everything together. And I know Baylor's already a great culture, so that may not be an issue anyway. But I mean, what role? I guess my question is, what role did you play in Jalen Bridges coming back, and are you looking forward to kind of mentoring those 4 and 5-star type guys that are younger than you?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely looking forward to that and doing that and and really not like just being a help to them and being a resource for them. And they like our credit to our coaches, they did a really good job recruiting the right type of guys. We don't have a lot of ego in our locker room. So that's really nice. And like kind of like I spoke to it, like even though there is 4 and 5 stars all over the place in our locker room, um, guys don't really act like it. They act like they are kind of at the bottom and grinding and trying to make it to the top. So we got the right type of guys in the locker room, which makes all of that easier. And so I just try to be a resource for them.
Of course.
And then say it again.
With Jalen Bridges,
Yeah,
what kind
yeah,
of role did you play to getting him to come back to Baylor?
yeah. And then with JB, me and him actually were in the Bucks workout together.
Okay.
Um, so we worked out for the Bucks together, and I was kind of going through the process, and I hadn't decided yet. And we played together, and we're on the same team, and just kind of hit it off right away. And we started playing together, and it was like an instant gel. And
He
he
came
was,
back.
yeah, and we both we both were there. It was like, yeah, we might have to make this happen. We might have to play together. And so I ended up coming to Baylor, and he ended up coming back. And I'm so happy he came back and excited to play with him.
That's awesome to hear, man. That's the kind of inside information we like, and it's fun to think about you guys playing together and saying, hey, let's run this thing back at Baylor and see what we can do. Um, so, we talk about the big, everybody's talking about, Ray J this year and JB and talking about, Jacoby Walter and stuff. Who's the guy on this team that maybe is not getting as much attention and we're not talking about as much that we need to have on our radar?
Um, two dudes, Jaden Nunn and Eve Missy are serious, really, really serious players, and gonna put the country on notice this year for sure.
Okay. My John and I's last episode prior to this episode, we did actually a Big 12 season preview where we ranked each team, spoke about each one in depth, and kind of see how they stack up against each other. John actually had Baylor number 2 in the Big 12 behind Kansas. I had Baylor number 4 behind Kansas, Houston, and Texas. Why am I too low on the Baylor Bears this year?
Um, I mean, I think we got the right guys. We got the right type of guys, and we like the way we gel together and our connectivity right now is at a really high level. And I mean, the season doesn't start for like another month, essentially. So, I mean, I think we got the right guys, and you'll see why you got us too
Okay.
low.
I mean, again, number 4 in the Big 12 is nothing to scoff at by any means. It's still probably a
Uh,
top 10 or 12
no
team.
question.
But
Yeah. And I got one last question. And as part of that Big 12 preview, we ranked our top teams. And then we also talked about Big 12, the conference, all conference team, and one of my players I had on that conference team at point guard was RayJ Dennis. So tell me why I'm right.
I love to compete. I love to compete, and we're gonna win. So I mean, that's the two things that I can give you right now. I mean, everything else, like I said, stats and all that will take care of itself. But with the players I got around me and my mindset to go out there and win and compete, and that's what I'm gonna do. So
That's awesome. Thank you. We believe in you, man. Sick 'em.
yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's all the questions I have as well. So, RayJ, we definitely appreciate you taking the time to, come on and speak with us. You're the first current major player we've had come on this podcast. So we appreciate that. This is kind of our Big 12 Part 2 interview with RayJ Dennis, if you will. So I recommend everyone who's listening to just the audio component go listen to the film breakdown as well. That's going to be on the One and Done podcast YouTube channel. So, RayJ, again, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on. Good luck this season. Again, John and I are huge believers in your game. And again, we appreciate it.
No, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. This was fun.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks, RayJ.
So you guys can follow me on Twitter at @the_NBAGEL. That's NBAGELL. You can follow John on Twitter at JohnSimpson42. You can follow the One and Done podcast on Twitter at @1_and_donepod. Follow us on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube if you want to watch the film breakdown with RayJ, which I definitely recommend you guys doing. And yeah, rate and review Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And go show RayJ Dennis some love. He's obviously gracious enough to come on and get some time of his off season away to talk hoops with us. And yeah, if you're not a fan of the Big 12, you're not a fan of Baylor, then this year I definitely recommend tuning in because it's definitely going to be a show. So RayJ, I appreciate you coming on, and John and I will talk to you guys next episode.
Thank you.